Oh, hello, hello, hello. What is going up? Up? What is going on, everyone? It's Eddie from Eddys Emporium, and it is episode 60. Let me move this into the other screen because it's confusing me seeing that one there. There we go, that's better. Can see you, can see the camera. And so today, it's Thursday, 9 p.m. The reason I'm doing one early is firstly so I can get one out to you. But secondly, I've got Creamfields, and for you not native to the UK, you might not know what Creamfields is. It's an electronic dance festival where DJs play the hippest, hoppest music known to man. And me being there Saturday, I did not want to be a mangled corpse trying to edit and do this Sunday. So you've got one earlier from me, so on time for you, but it might be shorter, it might be a bit more concise. Unless I decide to yappa yappa yappa. Shut it, Maurice. So, in terms of how we're doing this week, the sales have actually been slower this week than others. Now, obviously, we're on the 21st at the time of recording, so it's school holidays, people are getting ready for school. It's obviously the last week or so before payday. Many contributing factors, probably why it's slower. That being said, it's also been quite a silver lining because it's helped me catch up with things like stock, listing stuff, speaking to distributors, because now I'm starting to get quite heavy in with obviously pre-ordering stock. I'm also having second thoughts in terms of what stock do I want to prioritize. Am I spreading myself too thin? I've currently got things like the new Lorcana set, the Fabled one that's coming out, I think, early September. I'm thinking maybe pulling back from that one because Lorcana has never really been a thing that I'm interested in. And right now, while I'm establishing myself, having the key staples, and just trying to get into Magic, it makes a bit more sense just to kind of pace it a bit more. And also that means there's more capital that goes into the ventures I feel a bit more confident about, because I don't know if anyone that's watching this plays Lorcana, but I don't know anyone. And I know the TCGs having a bit of what feels like a rough patch. It came out and it was quite popular at the start. Obviously, as you can imagine, with all the Disney IPs, but it's not quite, I think, got a foothold, or at least, speaking to me as a card store owner at the moment. But that's because I don't have the capital probably to invest wide. So I've got to kind of pick my fights right now. So more likely than not, I'm going to pull back from that wall and kind of focus on, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, One Piece, and other areas, potentially singles graded, like we've mentioned before. So yeah, watch this space. In terms of grading, again, very, very recurring thing. Sent 10 more of the kind of low cost art rares that are kind of building into that impulse buy strategy that I keep going back to. And I do feel kind of confident about this because just people, whether, I sell on Vinted, I sell on eBay, obviously, more importantly, sell my store, do want to cater to that. And I feel that, if you kind of speak to the majority of people, so I'm saying like more than 51% here, it doesn't have to be the exact amount. So you probably would see that someone would impulse buy a slab, probably more than a card of that value potentially. And again, this is not me pulling a fact, it's just a gut feeling. So having a nice art rare in a 10 opposed to maybe spending 15, 20 quid on a raw card, depending on how you are and who you are as a collector. Obviously, that is not me speaking for you. That's just a feeling I have, especially when you got a bit more of the generic collectors coming into the space, especially Pokemon, and exploring their avenues and kind of want to get into that slab market like they see on TikTok. So yeah, that's kind of all being sent off there. And in terms of the tempting prices, I've been reworking prices across my site, but in relation to the graded cards, I have been a lot more. Well, I've just reduced prices down, and obviously put them kind of like around sub 30 marks for a lot of the Japanese ones, 9s and 10s. And same with Vinted, because Vinted, obviously, people that shop on there tend to want bargains. So I thought, well, try and understand the market a bit more, put them out there, and it's had really good traction. Surprising amount, given the fact that some of them, aren't budget options. Like, my temporal force is Gengar. That's like a high mid value card, obviously not high value in terms of the stock I have right now. And it's that even they've been getting tractions, but I mean the Arch Drudilon, I think I said that right, has already had like 2 or 3 or 4 offers around the kind of above 20 to 25 mark on my Vinted account. And that's really interesting because I've got a profit tracker, obviously, in terms of like how much it's cost me, card grading, anything else, and then obviously significant fees after that. And it was already above that kind of £10 profit margin that I was saying that I'm aiming for. Now, that's great because obviously it shows that these can sell. And that's kind of where this proof of concept over the next 10, 20 grading submissions that I will be doing of cards, not in total. It could be in total, depending on how profitable it would be. But as you can imagine, you at minimum send 10 cards in. 10 cards that have high trending value but a low cost. That makes you 100 quid. And if you've got enough in the cycle, and by the cycle I'm talking about the grading, because when you send it off for grading, obviously if you look at it objectively for one card, you go, I'm going to send that one card in for grading to make £10. I'll see it in about 8 weeks' time, if you're lucky, depending on where you're grading. That in itself isn't value and time. But when you kind of create that process and that flow where they're constantly coming in and out, and that's where I'm starting to kind of inject into there, understand the cards I want, because there is that element of modern cards, illustration rares, art rares, depending on whether you're obviously Japanese, English, but also nostalgia baiting. And I am talking about this from a business perspective, of course, because that's what sells a lot of the time. I'm a 30-year-old, grew up with Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dark Magician, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Pokemon, grew up with Charizard, One Piece, Luffy, the Straw Hat Crew, depending, I haven't recently got into it, but you kind of get my drift. That sells, especially when I have disposable income now. And that's the kind of cards I'm looking into, but obviously not exclusive to Pokemon. Pokemon will be the 75% of that kind of flow, but I also kind of want to see where it goes. And this kind of leads into one of my next points was I started to get into Pokemon, not Pokemon, well, been into Pokemon for a while, Digimon, vintage Digimon. And you'll see here quite a few. Here's like one of the, the old ones here, the upper deck ones. You'll see them all here. And these are ones that I've kind of gone through and kind of said, I don't want to even try grading. You imagine that these are not going to be 10s, but what that has for me, and that's a lot better actually, you see better here, this card here has a nostalgic element, and if you put that in a nice pretty plastic case, it feels even more, even at a 7 or 8, because this card was from 1999. This is probably older than some people potentially watching this. I was only 4 at the time in which this card was printed. So there's the element of selling a 10, but there's an element of selling nostalgia as well. And I think they fall into 2 different categories. If you get a 10 and you get nostalgic, you're probably in like a high money range. But you can get a 6 to a 9 and be within that budget range, but also sell nostalgia. And that's where, and some of you watching might see this one. This one's the Digibattle version, where they had their own kind of TCG. This was the Upper Deck version, which is another collab that obviously made the TCG, kind of like how Wizards of the Coast made Pokemon back in the day. And yeah, these hold a lot of sentimental value, and I think that's what you as a business owner need to remember. You know, what I like at this current point in time, probably a lot of people liked my age. Now, obviously, Digimon, it's not an IP that is trending. It's not an IP, the new Digimon game, I think they just went for a rebrand. It still doesn't have that hit. So, obviously, you imagine I'm going to be a bit more apprehensive with how I grade them, how much money I invest into them. I'm going to see how the kind of it flows at the start. But I certainly, I showed one of my friends, Andy, it, and it heals part of your soul when you see something. It feels like a long lost artifact from your childhood. And I suppose, is there a TCG that you have that I've not mentioned that kind of feels like nostalgic to your childhood? I know, like, there's also like things like Dinosaur King. While it wasn't a kind of card game as big as Digimon, Pokemon back in the day, they had the massive arcade thing. I think that's where it broke through. Actually, it came to Japan, to England from Japan, or America from Japan, as the arcade game, and I think it got made into an anime series. But that was huge in terms of gaming scene over there. A little fun bite for you. I've got some actually of those cards to my left right now. I'll show them another time, but if you did ever want to see them, they're also on my website. I'll put them up there. Very, very fun. I got them actually from an old arcade owner who was just selling off them in their sealed consignments. I don't know what. And yeah, again, obviously, in terms of the business, we had a customer that bought the some cards from the store, some OPO 5 packs, and unfortunately they didn't arrive. But they've been super in terms of being patient, and these are the kind of moments where you kind of panic as a store owner, because you obviously, if anyone says it's with the courier, like, that's a lie. You've got rights. Your contract's not with them. The courier, the contract's with the seller. So I still own that, and I have to make that right. And that's the kind of process that I have happily put in place. In terms of your consumer rights, I put them all up on the website just so you can stay as informed as possible. And we picked it up with the individual that lost their packs in the post. We waited until, I think it was the 19th, which was about 10 days. And obviously, sometimes you don't know what kind of individual you're going to get. Obviously, you need to sort of say, Royal Mail says you need to wait 10 business days to make a lost complaint, for me to be able to obviously get money from Royal Mail should the parcel not show up. And they were so understanding, and it's so nice to be able to, like, have customers, that are really like-minded in the same way that they appreciate there is a process, and it is an inconvenience for them. And they made it so enjoyable for me. And I say that obviously, like, loosely, because obviously it's still a lost item. But they could have kicked and screamed, but they were just so patient, so understanding. So I gave them an OPO 9 with the new pack, sent it out tracked 48 hours, so they didn't get any delays, because anything under £20 second class, anything over £20, yeah, it's obviously 48 hours, unless obviously you're paying for a box or something like that. And yeah, that was nice. That was nice to have that interaction, because that was a first with the online store. Obviously, I've done returns for eBay and things like that, but it was stressful but enjoyable at the same time. So if you are watching this, you know who you are, and thank you, because it made me feel a lot calmer being a new business owner. And you don't really get wins like that in business much. So yeah, we also got the new Charizard release, the new Mega Charizard that you'll see from the Pokemon. I'll pop it up here. That looks sick, and I know people who are real traditionalists about Pokemon. They didn't really like the old Megas with all the kind of big lettering across them. I thought it was really cool, real kaiju-y kind of Godzilla type designs in the way the card looks, at least, not the Pokemon. I really like them. And I mean, I suppose, how do you feel about this? Because they've kind of blended it a bit more, because with the first Megas, and I'll pop the first Megas over here, like Charizard, it kind of went a bit very 0 to 100, but with this one over here, and I'll put Charizard here, you kind of see that illustration blend where it kind of feels a bit more softer in terms of illustration, not as heavy in terms of like in your face aggressive design. So let me know what your thoughts are in terms of what you prefer, because, or if you don't prefer them at all, I really like the new design. I really like the old design, so it's not really too like kind of lost on me. But do you see it as an improvement? Let me know. And yeah, that silver lining that I mentioned earlier on, not having too much of a busy week, I've managed to start getting through some bulk and boredom buying. Hence, you see like a ton of Digimon cards here that I'm working through, getting onto the site, making sure that I'm getting the right conditions for you. And obviously, first time, well, buying vintage in terms of bulk, and you're learning about, okay, well, vintage has different, you know, you've got obviously near mint, which is near mint, but obviously the wear conditions in vintage is a bit more looser. Obviously, you got your light play, moderate play, heavy play, damaged, and it's a lot harder to gauge. So if you do kind of feel a certain type of way about how people grade or suggest grade, like the conditioning, sorry, not grading in terms of cards, but grading like the condition of a card, like say, you know, it's got whitening across the top here, you know, a little like crease or crimple. Would you class that, because it's a vintage, as in the same way you do a modern? Or would you do it in a bit more, would you have a bit more leeway if you got a light play card and it had some kind of bit more whitening around the edges than you'd expect of a light wear modern card? Would you feel the same way or different, because you do have that 20-year elemental wear and tear that not usually is found on a card that was produced, you know, 6 months ago? Let me know, because it's something I'm thinking about as well, because obviously I tend to grade down when I look at the conditions, because as a customer, if you get a card that's a light play that you think this could really be a near mint, you are happier. If you get a card that's said a near mint and it kind of has light wear, scratches or marks, you're not so happy. So brand, big thing for me. Trust, big thing for me. Community, big thing for me. So let me know for vintage, because obviously a near mint vintage is vintage. You know, it's nearly impossible to get unless it's already slabbed. So it would be really interesting to know. And I'll stop talking about that now, because I've probably looped twice. So whereabouts are we? Scrolling down. Sorry, I've jumped between my points. So yeah, I've also been watching other content creators in the TCG space. So Ruxin is a new person that I've looked at to understand a bit more about the Pokemon. He's kind of like, I'm not going to say comparisons, actually, I don't want to offend anyone. Not that you'd probably be watching, but if you're hi Ruxin. He does all kind of the vintage openings of like Yu-Gi-Oh! And everything like that, and kind of covers, plays the modern game, you know, plays some of the digital games. And I think it's really important for me as a business owner to kind of use and tap into them sources of information to really get the knowledge about what the community is feeling like, what they're feeling like, because they've specialised in an area, and I probably will never be at that level in one TCG. I eventually will become a specialist in one area, and obviously to generalize, it'll probably be like more likely Pokemon than not, but like Yu-Gi-Oh is a dear and near to my heart. So it's really nice to kind of see and engage with that area of my TCG life again. But yeah, if you do have any other content creators, obviously I'm watching Rudy from alpha investments about, Magic, but that's a bit more like business at the moment. Well, Rudy is an investor, just kind of like has a love for Magic, invests heavily in Pokemon Sealed. If you do have any other kind of creators that you think I would benefit from, let me know, because the more the merrier. I will happily sit and watch videos about people opening shiny cardboard all day long, as I'm sure you would. But yeah, that would be really, really cool of you if you could let me know. I think I'm coming to the end of my 4 bubble, and I'm at 20 minutes, so I'll wind this in because I said it would only be a quick one. So yeah, obviously looking at pricing and stuff like that, trying to price competitively, and I'm currently in this kind of like limbo of, is it a volumes game, which I keep saying and have said last week, versus how much of a volume do you sell a pack for, 20-40p profit, which if a pack costs you, a quid, that's great because it's still that kind of 20-30% profit margin. Or do I kind of hold out for a larger one? And I don't really think a larger one's possible, especially in like kind of Japanese markets and things like that. Pokemon's so saturated that, everyone's pushing their own prices down, trying to make sales. One Piece actually is very good for me. Not many people sell One Piece Japanese packs loose. Obviously, loose being I open up the box that I buy sealed. They don't seem to want any of that, and so that's usually quite good for volume and profit. But yeah, positive note for you, if it sticks, obviously my prices on the website are just like a lot of packs are under £2 very consistently, and I plan on pricing as fair as I possibly can without kind of tying one hand behind my back. So whatever sticks will be kind of the pricing moving forward, but this will be an adapting thing. So if you do see prices on the website kind of shift week in, week out, obviously with Japanese, it could be inflating with the market. But on the flip side, it could just be me trying to sort of understand where and how I want to price, because obviously I'm quite reactive to how other sellers are. I need to kind of get a bit more like, there's my line in the sand about what the prices are, because I do get stressed that I am overpricing them at times. I don't think I am, but when you see other places that are, selling them for like, £1.55 a pack or something like that, you kind of like, how do I compete with that? And you do feel strong armed to do that, and that's how businesses should work. You've got to find a way, and if you can't, it's maybe not the product for me. But yeah, if you do see that, again, drop me a message, because if I can sort you out, I absolutely will sort you out. And I'll try and respond to everyone all the time. And I've not done so far, but if I ever get inundated, that's the word, with messages, obviously I'll get through them all as quickly as I possibly can. But yeah, that is it for episode 6. I will now go and edit this video. I will have a very sore head when you see this video on Sunday. But I hope you all have had a lovely week. And if you do have any questions, let me know in the comment section. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next vid. Ciao.